Is there a specific food or a specific ingredients or the makeup or something of food that most people consume that by eliminating this will make a giant difference in their life from what you found?
Yes, yes, yes. And probably 90% of people out there will disagree with me, but I am very, very different and controversial here. Grains. All grains. The only thing that you need to understand is you need to learn to know what to choose. And before you go to a restaurant, and that's what we normally do, look at the menu. Is there grass-fed steak available? Is there this available? That's it. You go to a restaurant, and the first thing I will tell them, please don't waste your bread. We won't eat it.
When you're creating these plans for people and you're giving them this custom nutritional game plan, which, by the way, for people who have cancer or without, this is huge, right? Because
yeah,
I know so many people who are always asking, I need to go to a nutritionist to get a nutrition game plan. And now I know one personally who can help them, which is great. So is it more so adding in specific foods, or is it more so eliminating a lot of foods that someone is already eating or consuming? Is it more so adding or eliminating?
So it's a little bit of both. So number one thing, so that 7-day blueprint that I told you about is actually detoxing your home and environment and your life.
Okay.
Because that's the number one thing we want to get rid of. If there are things around you that you either eat or exposed to, you need to get rid of them, toxins.
Can you give us some examples of what some of those might look like?
Oh, yeah, I can give you an example. Like in every household's medicine cabinet, there are a lot of things, whether it be supplements or your usual Advil, or painkiller or whatever, or your prescription medications. And how many of you have things in your medicine cabinet that have all kinds of bright colors, right? And those colors are basically branding for that company. So when you think of Advil, what color do you think about? If it's a gel, it's really bright, bright green. If it's that cap, it's like that brownish red color, right? That dye in those pills is a known carcinogen.
Wow. In medicine.
In medicine. So you're taking Advil or your prescription medication or a supplement, and they have dyes in them. And the dyes strictly serve the purpose of branding. Wow. Because I have fought this for many years. I go and look for a Advil or ibuprofen that doesn't have dye in it, and I recommend that for my clients if they have to take it. I don't recommend it. But
can you find that? Is that even something?
Yes, you can. You can have all kinds of your stuff. You have to know this in order to ask it and look for it. So I've done a lot of research, of course, and I have found all these different things that people ask me often. So how about, like, what am I going to do if I have a headache or whatever? Yes, you can. So that's just one example in your household. But there's also a lot with food, which I'm not going to get into because it's pretty big. But yeah, that's just a simple example. Yeah.
Amazing. Is there a specific food or a specific ingredients or the makeup or something of food that most people consume that by eliminating this will make a giant difference in their life from what you found?
Yes, yes, yes. And probably 90% of people out there will disagree with me, but I am very, very different and controversial here. Grains. All grains. Gluten or non-gluten. Your oatmeal, your hot cereal, your cold cereal, your bread, and anything that has a grain. And I'm not talking about gluten. Gluten-free products are even more toxic.
Whoa.
Yes. So I don't recommend grains at all. Grains were never part of our evolutionary diet. Humans, cows, fish, chicken, turkey, none of us were supposed to have grains ever in our diet. So, and the gluten-free is just a fad, and I don't believe in diets. I believe in the way Mother Nature intended for us to eat. And if we do that, we don't need to diet, and we most likely won't get sick as often. Right?
How powerful is that?
Yeah. Now think about this. If you go in nature and put a steak in front of a cow, right? It wouldn't eat it, right? unless you force feed, the cow doesn't even have the digestive system and the tools to utilize that, so they won't. If you made a wild cat vegan, it wouldn't survive. I guarantee it. They won't survive. They eat what they're supposed to naturally eat. So who is it in this our nature, our natural world that needs a dietitian or don't eat what they were supposed to eat? We're humans and our domesticated animals. Other than that, you don't ever have to. Do you ever see an overweight deer?
No.
Right?
No.
Or an anorexic elephant? You don't, right? They eat what they're supposed to eat. And those diseases that we get really don't exist in nature. How many types of cancer do deer get or wildcats get? No, they don't. So there is a lot to be learned about nature. And that's basically my basic philosophy, that our diet didn't ever consist grains. And it's a whole course I teach about that. I call them a good and the bad and the ugly. With all the food groups, it's called the proteins and the carbohydrates and the fat, the good and the bad and the ugly in each group. So
what benefits can someone expect to see, and how quickly, by eliminating grains? And by the way, stupid question, pasta is considered a grain, correct?
Well, not all pasta nowadays are made with grains, but generally traditional pasta, yes, it is made with wheat most likely.
What types of pasta are not made from grain? Like,
there are pastas these days. Oh gosh, I have a whole list of them. There are pastas that are made with lentils. There are pastas that are made with chickpeas or hearts of palm. Oh, you can eat all of those without grains. Life without grains is very possible and is very enjoyable. I have not had a piece of grain in about, 12 years.
Wow.
Yep. And it's very, very manageable. So the good news is, when I started this, there wasn't very many options. I had to make recipes for everything, even making your own bread and nowadays, 10 years later, there's a lot more options out there. So that's the good news.
And you're
that's
a busy
good question
person too.
What was that?
You're always on the go. You're a busy person. Like,
yeah,
I'm assuming you travel at times. Like, how feasible is it to, like, how often are you mostly cooking for yourself? Or are you going to restaurants very often? Because I know there's some great restaurants in Vermont, great food up there. Like, what does that mix look like? And how do you manage that with a busy lifestyle?
I'm so glad you asked this, because people think it's impossible. I say anywhere I go out, I travel. Not as much as, you might think. I used to travel more, not anymore, but I do still go away. And in fact, we just celebrated our 10th anniversary with my partner. We went out and he eats the same way I eat. And yes, you can. The only thing that you need to understand is you need to learn to know what to choose. And before you go to a restaurant, and that's what we normally do, look at the menu. Is there grass-fed steak available? Is there this? That's it. You go to a restaurant, and the first thing I will tell them, please don't waste your bread. We won't eat it. So don't even bring it to the table. And they always, oftentimes, most restaurants are willing to give you a substitute for something you don't want.
Okay.
You can have a burger without a bun, so all of those are, so no, you can. I also have cooking is not only a therapy for me, but it's a hobby. It's what I love to do. I've always liked it, even as a kid. I used to decorate platters with fruits and vegetables for my family. But you can, you can eat healthy pretty much in any situation. All you have to do is know and be educated about it, which is what I love to do. I love to teach people, because I can tell you, all right, that's what you're going to eat for like 4 months. Then I'm leaving, or, we're not going to be together forever. And then you forget, why did you say I shouldn't eat this? But the key is I take a lot more time teaching my clients why and how it affects their body if they didn't or if they did. And then they know that they have their own roadmap, so they don't ever get lost, right?
Yes.
They can always refer to that. So that's the important thing.
I love that. You make it very realistic for busy people to incorporate this into their life. And it's a lot of just being aware of where you're going out to eat. It's about being conscious of
making choices. making the
Yes,
choices. Yep.
you're
You
right.
make, at the end of the day, what you put in your mouth is completely up to you. And no one
Yes.
can force you to eat anything, right?
100%. And
Right.
some people, like including myself, we think, okay, it's going to be difficult to incorporate these changes, which is true at the beginning, right? Because we're putting more, how much effort do we really have to place right now in our current routine on what we eat?
Right.
Not much, because it's become automatic. Just like we walk
Yeah.
automatically, we breathe automatically, but it quickly becomes a force of habit. And
Right.
okay, so let's say I eliminate grains from, because I just full transparency, I eat a lot of bread. I eat a lot of pasta.
Most
That's not
people do.
making sense.
Yeah, of course.
So what would you suspect that
Mhm.
how would you suspect I would feel differently after a bit of time? How much time would it take to feel differently, and what differences might I notice?
For grains, within a week or two.
1 or 2 weeks.
1 or 2 weeks. For most people, is their digestive system is a lot better. You know, everyone's bloated these days.
Mm,
Everyone. So that is a number one thing. And number two is less aches and pains in general. People with arthritis, um, achy joints and stuff, within a week, they feel that already. It's very, very quick. And for some cases, and one of the most phenomenal results I will share with you is with neurological conditions such as Parkinson's or MS. That is so phenomenal. It is amazing to me, even to this day. Every single time I work with someone with Parkinson's, 2 weeks later, their symptoms are so much less and so much alleviated. It's incredible.
wow.
But the opposite is true too. So grains are actually really affect the brain more than anything else.
Interesting.
So, brain fog, everyone talks about, that
Yes.
3 in the afternoon, kind of needing a cup of coffee and all of that kind of stuff. That is another thing people don't experience, is that, my brain clarity, my gosh, my brain works better. Even for people who don't have neurological conditions. That's just a few things I can say that people experience immediately. Just feeling better without the bloat, and they lose weight if they need to,
Yeah.
which
I'm gonna make
unfortunately, a lot of people these days, over 50% of our population are either obese or overweight, sadly.
yeah.
And that has a lot of comorbidities, including cancer. So, that's one thing that one major thing that most people experience within a week or two, they start losing weight.
That's amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
I was that. I was fat practically my entire life up until I was
Mm-hmm.
18 years old. And I had someone who came into my life when I was 21 who said, you've got to make some changes. Right. And it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
just because they were looking out for my future health. My obesity was affecting how I felt about myself, how I
Of
interacted
course.
with others. And they said, you need to make a change. And I did.
Mm-hmm.
Within 6 months, I lost 60 pounds and I
Oh,
felt
wow.
and that was while still eating grains. That was still
Right.
eating all
But
these
still a
things.
lot of changes. I mean, yeah, you probably made a lot of changes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And that's just
So,
one thing, right?
and
Exactly.
I'm always looking for different strategies to become even sharper because I
Mm-hmm.
understand what that brain fog is, and I'm really good at working through the brain
Mm-hmm.
fog. What
Yeah.
would it look like to
Not
eliminate
have it.
the brain fog
See,
altogether?
that's the thing. Most people are so used to certain symptoms that they learn to live with them. And then when you take that away and they're like, oh, that's how life should be.
Mm,
Like, that's how I should feel. And, but they're gotten used to the alternative so much that, waking up with aches and pains is normal, or getting bloated after every time I eat is totally normal. Like, no,
yeah,
that's not. No, none of that is normal, So, yeah, it's just getting used to certain symptoms and not knowing what the alternative is until you eliminate it. And then you realize, this is how I'm really supposed to feel.
yes.
Yeah.
Just because you caught me off guard with grains, I didn't expect you to say that. Now, curiosity, is there anything else, even just one other thing, without going too deep into it, maybe, that we can eliminate in order to see a big result very similar to grains?
Yes, another very controversial topic. All animal-based dairy.
Animal-based dairy,
Yeah.
like whole milk.
Whole milk, yogurt, cheese, anything. Or
Yogurt.
non-fat milk. Yep. So here's the deal. Cow's milk for calves, human milk for babies until weaning age. It's that simple. We don't consume our own mother's milk after age 2 normally, because that's when we're supposed to be weaned off of mother's milk. It serves a purpose. It has human growth hormones for humans. It has bovine growth hormones for cows. It has mice growth hormones for mice, and so on and so forth. It's very species specific. So do you ever see a cow breastfeeding of an elephant or an adult cow breastfeeding of an adult cow? You don't see that. Not natural. For us, it's something, again, we became lazy with our food. Instead of eating the cow, we started milking the cow. And so that's another place where I'm controversial, because how often do you hear, when do I get my calcium? You actually don't get your calcium from milk. You actually leach your bones out of calcium because you're having dairy. And there's a long conversation about that, but it actually makes your bones look like Swiss cheese.
Throughout my upbringing, I was always the fat kid. Like always the fat kids. From like 7 years old, I was the chubby kid with the bowl cut in school. And looking back, it's very clear to see why. I mean, I grew up in a great household, loving parents, raised by a father and mother. The cupboards were always stocked with salt and vinegar chips and Lay's with the French onion dip. And like, I know all the good fat kid foods to go to, and I still indulge sometimes in those same things. But now I am more observant about what I'm putting into my body and what it consists of and whether it's good, whether it's not. So back then I definitely had a problem with emotional eating. And even still today, there will be a time where I'm having a tough time and I will resort to one of the greatest drugs of all, which is the food that we put in our mouth. So I'm really excited to dive into these concepts with you today.
Yeah, great. And that is kind of interesting when we're talking about our childhood, because we never want our parents to like listen to these episodes and be like, oh, thanks a lot. But it's not throwing him under the bus. You're just like, it's just something I've learned at this point that is different than what we knew back then. That's okay.
Definitely. Now you do what you're doing because of your own personal experience with emotional eating and dieting and all that. So for those who don't know you, can you give us an idea of where you come from with this concept?
Yeah, sure. So I also tended to be on the chubbier side when I was younger. It was pointed out really clearly by my classmates in 7th grade as we were watching a video from earlier in our in our education together. Everyone was laughing like, look at Lisa, look how fat she is. And, just went on to having several adults in my life in high school and then in college point out that I should lose some weight. And these were kind of like trusted adults that, teachers, coaches, things like that. And so I just learned pretty young in those formative years that there was something wrong, quote unquote, with my body and the shape that it was. So I started into then having babies and nursing, which is a wild ride for your body. So I just had a lot of thoughts about that. A lot of thoughts about, well, now I'm pregnant. It's okay to be fat. And this is the last time. I knew it was my last baby. I'm like, this is the last time I can eat whatever I want. And all these thoughts that now I like remember having. But as I look back, I'm like, wow, those were, number one, completely incorrect, because obviously pregnancy is not a time that is also unhealthy overweight, right? That's not an unhealthy weight gain. Like, you're supposed to do that. And just the idea that like after this pregnancy, I won't be able to eat what I want. Also just not true. So it just really led me for a couple decades to be on just several diets. I was yo-yo dieting up and down, up and down, up and down. And finally, when I came across coaching, I understood that this is happening in my brain. And the biggest problems were happening because I was trying to satisfy the brain, not the body. I had completely ignored what my body was telling me. And especially when I was counting and calculating my food. So what I mean by that is like counting calories, calculating your macros. I'm trying to hit macros between plus plus or minus 5 grams on every macro every day. Like that is a video game you do not want to play with yourself every single day. It just created a lot of stress for me, a lot of anxiety. If counting macros works for you, that's fabulous. For me, it made me completely obsessive about my food. And I just completely ignored what my body was telling me. So I'm checking in with my diet app and I'm like, how much food should I eat? Or how much food do I have left for today? And completely ignoring what my body was telling me. So I'm eating lunch meat in front of the refrigerator, trying to meet my protein macros when I'm not even hungry. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right. And ignoring when I needed energy from carbohydrates, like, well, I don't have any carb macros left. Too bad for me. I better just eat a meat stick. Like it just didn't make any sense. I completely disregarded what my body was telling me. And, I didn't really lose that much weight. It just wasn't really working for me. And, intense boot camp type training programs and stuff, my body just shut down. It's like, we will hold on to everything you're putting in because this feels really unsafe.
Yeah.
So, once I let go of someone else or a diet app telling me how much to eat or what to eat, I really was able to pay attention to what my brain was telling me and what my body was responding to.
Wow. What a story. So many things I want to dive into there, but I'm curious. So at that point in your story, what did you do? You mentioned you started coaching, you started working with a coach or going through a program. Mm-hmm. So what were some of the big shifts that you made in order to better listen to your body rather than cater to your brain?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is rather than counting food by calories or macros, I use what I call a hunger scale, which is totally reliant on your body. So it would be similar in exercise to the exertion scale when you have like a scale of 1 to 10 and they'll say, we want you at an 8 right now, rather than looking at a heart rate monitor. It's a self-regulating measure of how you are feeling. And so I use a hunger scale that goes from -10 through 0 to +10.
Wow.
0 is neutral. -10 is so hungry, you're like weak with hunger, not like I skipped breakfast and now I'm starving. Like this is several hours. It's very uncomfortable. I have a whole episode on this, so I won't go into the whole thing, but +10 is like, Thanksgiving dinner, 3 pieces of pie. You got to lay down in a dark room, unbutton your pants. It's equally uncomfortable. And I think this is a big realization too, is that and this is a little bit of a side note, but I think our society really glorifies overeating. We have all these hashtags, food porn, food coma, these kinds of things. And it's like overeating, let's be honest, it doesn't actually feel good.
Mm-mm.
When you're when you're really thinking about your body, you actually feel pretty crappy. So being super hungry and being super full, they're both very, very uncomfortable. So that's why I give them the same scores, just on opposite end of the hunger scale. So rather than using a hunger scale that goes from like 1 to 10, which I've seen, I like to use the -10 to +10. So you can see like, this is equally terrible. Right? We're equidistant from 0, from neutral. So neutral is neither hungry nor full. This is usually about an hour to 2 hours after a meal. You're not feeling any food in your stomach, but you're not also feeling any pangs of hunger. Mm-hmm. So I guide my clients to eat when they're at about a -3. It's time to eat. We're feeling those natural hunger signals, like your body is telling you it's been several hours, it's time to eat. And we want to eat through 0 all the way to +3. And this is actually really important because in my dieting days, I tended to snack. The diets that tell you, oh, you've got to eat every 2 hours to keep your metabolism revving, that's garbage. Our bodies were made to eat and then stop eating and process and digest and then eat again. When we're constantly putting food on top of food on top of food, first of all, you're never getting to that positive 3 or 4 really satisfied feeling. So of course you're hungry all day. And then who wants to eat all day? That, like, people that are like, I just think about food all day. It's because you're not waiting for hunger and then eating a full meal. If the idea that, like, if you're not hungry enough to eat an apple, don't eat. I say, if you're not hungry enough to eat a meal, like, let's wait. Let's wait until you're hungry enough to eat a meal. And maybe you are. You probably are. If you're like, I'm hungry, you're probably ready to eat a meal. And then sit down, put it on a plate, butt in the chair and eat something till you're satisfied to a positive 3. You're going to find that this is going to stabilize you throughout the day so much more than eating these snacks, jumping around. If you think about that hunger scale, jumping around the -1, +1, right? I have clients that say, I don't know, I just was hungry all day. I'm like, did you ever sit down and actually eat a meal? No, I was busy. I grabbed this, I grabbed that. Well, you think about your hunger scale, you're jumping around that neutral. You're a little hungry, you eat a little snack, you're a little hungry, you eat a little snack, and you feel like you are hungry all day. Let's wait for -3 hunger. Let's wait until we're hungry with true physical symptoms, and then eat until we're satisfied. Eat until we've had enough, but we're not full. So the line between that -3 up to when we're on the full side, the +3 to that +4 and 5, then we're getting into fullness. We want to learn to stop. And this is to answer your original question. This was probably the biggest key for me. Not only the waiting for physical hunger, but understanding what was enough. Because emotional hunger doesn't just look like crying face down into a quart of ice cream. It also looks like, gosh, that was really good. I don't hardly ever get this food. I'm going to have seconds. When we're eating past our physical fullness, our physical enough, then we're moving into emotional hunger, because that hunger is coming from the brain, not from a signal of the body.
I love food, and I'm certainly not even adept at consciously eating. When I'm eating, sometimes I'll be watching a video or a movie when I'm eating. I'm not paying attention to each bite. Am I more conscious than a lot of people as I eat? Maybe, but I certainly have much room to improve. So my question for you first is, when you began this detox journey, or what you call the reset method, right? Are there specific foods that Mariana just doesn't touch or put into your body? Like, did you eliminate specific foods that some people might not even think that are harming them, but from what you learned in these books and these studies, you were like, I'm not going to eat these foods because they are not great for my body or my well-being?
Yes. And I did dive in to experience. And as I say in the book, you got to experience, dive into yourself. If you allow me, I'm going to just get a little bit back and say, my main thing is people changing from the within. They are so focused in, how do I lose weight? How do I change my nutrition? And my main thing is, that's the wrong start. We always should know, why should I change my nutrition? Why should I diet? Why should I lose weight to begin with? Because if we start with the how, we always gonna start and then we fail. We start and we fail another diet. We fail another attempt. And this is so, so frustrating. So that's why I'm gonna answer you in a little bit. But I think people need to understand, what is the motivation, what drives them forward towards a change in their lives. Nobody gonna change for another person. Nobody gonna change, even though they say are gonna change for you. They just gonna change if they think it is important for themselves. So unless we start with within, we have the same thing as me, with like a really nice body that was doing like high levels of sport, but I was like the body was not fully healthy inside, because the nutrition I was giving was not good enough for my body. So when we start to dive in, like, why do you want to lose weight? Or maybe some people, let's say, like Brandon told that he found himself fat, but he was really skinny. Why do I want to put weight in this case? So in the same way, I don't want to treat losing weight as you're going to be a better person, you're going to be more pretty, you're going to be you are pretty now today the way you are phenomenal, you are powerful beyond limits, and you are just wonderful. I want you to know that you're perfect.
Oh, thank you.
If we want to get a healthier life, if we want to feel energetic, if we want to feel joy, excitement, we need a body that holds the energy that we can feel these feelings.
Yes.
So if you want to be the best in your work, for example, you want to be really successful, where most of my clients are really high level in their companies. So if you just pay attention of your work, you forget one main central piece, which is you. Mm. And you're going to pay the price as soon, I hope you don't pay this price, but there is a saying that say people have thousands of dreams and desires, but when they are sick, they just have one.
Yes.
And that's what I don't want you to experience. So if you start to pay attention on you, how can I be really energetic? How can I have more? How can I have the best mood as I can from the beginning of the day to the end? How people can remember me as this good light that pass throughout and change the day, that bring the smile in the room, that changes a good leader, that when he speaks, everybody listen and when absorb. That will come from your energy.
Yeah.
It's the energy you have, what you are emanating from you, what is coming out of you. And that always will come through one decision. That's why I want to eat health, why I want to lose weight, why I want to put muscles. It needs to come from a decision, because life is full of challenges and temptations. Temptations are really available. These containers of ice cream are all around, and looks like when you go to this trend of a diet, in the first day you start a diet, someone invites you for the most tempting thing.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is. And that's why we think we are failure. People think they are a failure. They're not a failure. The system failed on them, which is the diet. Unless you do this change within, you're going to try things, and unfortunately, they're going to fail on you. It needs to come from within to be a pleasure.
I mean, you can go on your phone and open DoorDash and get any meal from any local restaurant that you want at your doorstep. It might be different internationally, but the point is exactly what you're saying. It's so accessible to us to eat these foods that don't serve us, but taste good and make us feel good in the moment. But then later our energy is gone. I know certain meals that even might look good on paper. I'm thinking specifically of one of those bowls from Moe's. Moe's Southwest is a big restaurant chain over here. And I'll eat one of these taco bowls, and the ingredients inside are quote unquote clean. But for the next few hours, I'm feeling run down. I'm feeling low energy. So I've become very attuned with when I eat this specific thing, I will feel this way after I eat it. So temptation is certainly all around us on an everyday basis, for sure.
Yes, it's exactly what you say. We have to realize, and that's the kind of food that I decide if I eat or don't eat. We have to start to eat and realize in a long term, after 1 hour, after 2 hours, after 4 hours, how do I feel? Because food that are unhealthy always tastes wonderful when we eat for that 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 10 minutes. They do feel good. I will not question here that it tastes a lot better. A clean plate of, let's say, a clean plate of vegetables with some fish whatever you're gonna eat that is more clean. We're not gonna say that tastes better than until now. We're not gonna say that tastes better than a burger with fries.
Yeah.
Those food, we are trained. Our brain is made to get us reward when we get this high calories food. Why? We have thousands of years of adaptation to survive. Human being species, to survive, food was very rare and difficult. You have to hunt, you have to pick it. Was not fully available until 1960, when we have the Industrial Revolution. Around that time is when we start to have weight problems.
Yeah.
That's when everything begins. It's not that food is bad, is that we start to have highly processed food available 24/7.
Yes.
And that's the problem. That's really the problem. So when we start to eat more natural food and we start to pay attention and given an understanding of the delay, what's happening in my body, how this body, is this food feeding my dreams or is killing my dreams?
That's a great question to ask. Yes. And I think people know, for the most part, well, not even for the most part, everyone knows that the vegetables and the fish or the chicken or whatever, maybe you're vegan and it's just vegetables and other things, they know that that is the better choice than the cheeseburger with fries. It comes back to what you said earlier of what is your why? What is the reason why you are making these changes? Because if you don't have a strong why, then it's, when you're in the situation where you could choose the burger or you could choose the vegetables, it makes it that much easier to choose the burger. You were almost forced in a way to make these different choices and to have your strong why in a way was given to you, right? Of here's fibromyalgia. You can either feel like a zombie and take these pharmaceuticals, or you can pursue this path of naturally healing your body. What have you encountered when you're working with these executives, people who are busy, they're living fast lives? Like, have you encountered where some of them say, I don't know what my reason why is, or I'm struggling to find a strong enough reason that helps me to make the better choice in the moment when I'm confronted with it?
Most of people don't have any idea of their why until they go for the journey I go through with them. We usually don't stop and know what we want. We usually know naturally what we don't want. Mm-hmm. So you usually ask it, and people, I don't want this, I don't want that, I don't want that. Okay, but what do you really want? And that's where people struggle to answer. So I think the great thing is, I love this journey that is not just about getting your body in the shape. It's really about having the best life, the best energy you can have it, the best thoughts you can have, because your mind become more positive as well along the way. And so just completely transform your life for better. And that's what this journey, this life threw me in this journey. So now I'm capable of helping many people to do this journey. So it's really stopping and start to have a time for yourself, to understand yourself and to nurture yourself. And then from that, we can quite quickly discover the why through some techniques. We can quite quickly get there. And when people just have it touch their hearts, they have a little bit of water in their eyes, or they say I don't know where this came from. And I'm oh, I got into the point. Now I got it. Yeah.
And your book brings them through that exercise as well.
It brings as well.
Okay. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
Awesome. Because I'm going to read the book. I haven't read the book yet. I'm going to read the book because I'm at that point now. And I want to ask you the question as well. I have tons of questions for you. Is it food? Is it fitness? Which one? So this is kind of a blanket question. People listening, there might be people who they don't have the cleanest diet, but they work out a lot, right? Or they might not work out a ton, but they've got the cleanest diet. Is one more important than the other? And I guess I'll let you just take this around because I'm not really sure of how to phrase the question, but can you have fitness but not have food? and vice versa? Which one is more important if there was one?
Yes. So I would say like each case is one, because some people is more to it depends the goal you really want. If you really want to lose weight, is that one thing that is more important. Nutrition will be the one that give you the fastest results. No doubt about this. Yeah. Nutrition will give you the fastest results. Now, without you changing your body composition, without you changing, you're missing out on improving like the whole function of your body. You're missing out on improving your brain. It's through exercise. If you want the best medicine as you can have, it is exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to like completely change the structure of your brain, completely change how your organism works, exercise. Now, that's what I say, like, it's a combination. I always think start from one place that is easy for you. And I like to think about stress. I like to think about how stressed you are, and then try to understand if it's a nutritional stress, if it's emotional stress, if it's a physical stress, and if you're not sleeping well. Where can we start to change this cycle? Because sleeping will be a major cause of doing bad choices in food intake, or doing like if you don't sleep well, your choices is already proving this. Your choices in the next day are poor.
That's very true.
That's why we need to get at 360 degrees and see the easiest way. And the biggest thing we need to get is a positive momentum.
Yeah.
We need to start to see the results coming, and quick. So how is for this individual the main pillar that will start to bring results? Easy. So if people like, I don't want to change my nutrition. Okay, let's start from another place. Let's start from the place that you are ready. And people always are ready for one place. And you need to make as easy as people can achieve in the worst days of their life. And that's how we start to get really results, because it's consistency. It's throughout time. People can keep this through a lifetime. And after a time, they start to feel like, well, now can we try to have a better breakfast? Can we try? How can I do it? They start to ask me, because they feel so good, so energetic. Like, what else can we get at? And so we start to have a natural pet of joy. Because let's be honest, if I say to you, like, okay, tomorrow you're gonna start to suffer. You're not gonna eat any sugar, and you cannot drink alcohol, and you cannot eat sugar. What do you think you're going to do today? How do you think you're going to feel it?
That's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot to do at once versus what you're talking about, which is one step at a time.
You feel pain. And who wants to, like, we are tuned to don't go towards pain. We are tuned to go towards pleasure. Mm-hmm. So who going to choose? You have to be crazy to choose this path. And like, yes, let's do this. And the day before, you're going to eat the whole house, and you're going to order more things. And then you do for a time, and everything you think the whole day is the thing that you are not eating.